Hello there. Hi. Nice to see you. It's been a long time since we've been here. A very long time. I think the last live I did was way back in December of last year. And I think at that point, I made the comment that I would be back more often and let's do it more regularly. I then went off and dived into 70,000 word manuscript. So I apologize for not being around, but I don't really apologize because there's like no way I could write the book and do this sort of stuff on a regular basis. Now, hopefully JF is joining us today. I hope he's here. I'm sure he will be. And if you'd like to say hello, that would be great. I wonder if I just pop a little comment in there. So do say hello when you join. So at least I know that somebody's here. And what we'll do is if we get several people joining eventually. Hello, is that JF that's present? I don't know. It could be somebody else. If we do get a number, Sally, hello, stranger. Yes, indeed. I know. Feel very guilty, but not overly so. But you know what I mean. So I'll talk a little bit about the book later, perhaps. That's what I've been working on, and that's where I disappeared to. But you know that because you'll remember. Hey, what am I saying? Hopefully JF is around. He will be moderating today. So let's see how that goes. I thought what we would do is really just reconnect, you know. It's been so long. It feels such a strange thing to be doing this. And ordinarily, I'd love to have copious notes to talk through and be really cohesive and sensible, but that's not the way it's going to be. Hey, JF, hey, there you go. So as per usual, if there are any questions on dowsing or the path of spiritual development that you're probably on, do pop them in the chat, and we'll see. JF will keep me on track, and I can he'll draw my attention to any that I've missed as we go through. No, yeah, well. I don't know. I thought I've seen you on. I don't know. You're still a member, Sally. So thank you for that. And thank you. Or if anybody's watching this on playback, if you're a member, thank you for being a member. There are 21 of you at the moment. I value you greatly. Thank you very much. Please do use that membership as an opportunity to ask any questions. I know it's really difficult because you questions about the spiritual development. Because hello, Gina. Because it's difficult, isn't it? You think of things that you think, oh, I must ask Tim that, and you're away from the phone or whatever it is. But just so you do use it. Do use it. For anybody that's not a member that wants to join, it is only £5, £4.99 a month, and it will be remaining at that for some considerable time. Squirrel Sniper. Yes, indeed, that's the one. I'm sure you were a regular, weren't you, Squirrel Sniper? Sherry G, hello. Good, excellent. I'm not going to say hello to everybody because we'll never get anywhere, will we? But so I thought what we would do, let's try and reconnect, basically pick up where we were a couple of years ago. And let's just go over some of the stuff that we do on the channel, because we're in writing the book, this book that I've put together and put it together, it'll be published in November. You'll have to forgive me. I'm going to keep talking about it. I'm actually quite excited. It's my first own self-published book. But in writing that, it's been really helpful. And JF has been helping me put that together as well. His help has been invaluable. So if anybody out there is thinking about writing a book, do get in touch with JF and he'll sort you out. So, but this has really helped gather my thoughts in what is it that I really do. Because there was an interview I did probably a couple of years ago now, on a channel where the guy was saying, you know, well, how do you work with your clients and with your mentorees and your dowsing students and all this sort of thing? And I was like, I don't really know. I just meet them where they are and then we work from that point. But, you know, the structure is here on the channel. There are over 300 videos on this channel. And we've got the basics of dowsing, the Learn to Douse playlist. JF, you might want to pop the link to, there's a video called Dowsing, A Path from Ghost to Subtle Energy, which is the basics of how did I get into all of this, for anybody that hasn't seen that one. Okay, I'll talk about that. Yeah, in a sec, JF. But thanks. Pop up the old. I got it working already. Pop up the old intro video there for people if they want to watch that after the live. How I got into it with finding the ghost in the house. So there's the doubt, but then there's the dowsing. There's the learn to douse, which is a playlist that you can find. And I thought I'd put the title of that in my notes, but I haven't. So that tells us where we are. Lisa, hello. Gosh, some familiar names here. Wonderful. So we go from dowsing. We can go from dowsing because dowsing is such a wonderful, wonderful way of starting to kind of access the subtle energy, the spiritual side of self. And that's really what we're talking about here. We're talking about human beings that come along and say, oh, okay, yeah, there's more to life, isn't there? Here it is, the spiritual aspect. And you know what? Picking up a bent bit of wire or a pendulum and starting to ask questions. Don't ask the big questions first, the first thing. Ask simple questions, learn about how the dowsing feels, what you can do with it. But above all, like some people do, yeah, brilliant, Squirrel Sniper. That is perfect. That is exactly what you can do with it. Yeah, I bet they do. I bet they love it. Digsy, good man. Lovely to see you, mate. Your little one must be about 4 years old now, I'm guessing. So, yeah, the dowsing, one of the things, one of my students who's with us, aren't you, Sally, actually discovered when she wanted to learn more about dowsing, what she actually discovered was how naturally sensitive she was. And that's one of the things about dowsing, because, I don't insist that everybody does the dowsing. I mean, if they come to me and we start doing some spiritual development work, the greatest thing is to discover, my God, I don't need the dowsing rod. I don't need the dowsing pendulum. This is just amazing. What do we find when we just simply relax and allow and tune in, right? This is the it might seem obvious to some of you, but this is the fundamental of what are we really as human beings, because we sure as heck ain't this. This is not all of us. This is just like, what is this thing that we carry around in front of us? Where and what are the implications of the deeper aspect of self when we really start to connect into our hearts and to the light that is in the heart and the love that is in that light? What are we really? Because that's when reality starts to change. And that's when we really do discover that the world is not what it seems. Now, I've used that as a title for today because some of you will know this, but Digsy, 5 years old. Wow, I've lost a year. Because some of you will know that those words, the world is not what it seems, were the words that my guide all those years ago, 10 years ago, my guide, who was Merlin, but I called him by his Welsh name, Merthin, because I thought Merlin, that's too big a name. I can't get my head around that, and I don't even believe that's who you are. But he was. And so I called him Merthin, but he would sign off from channeling sessions with those words. The world is not what it seems. Now, some of you might be coming on this and thinking, yeah, no, it's not what it seems. It's a conspiracy. It's run by the elite, etc. Well, it is indeed run by an elite selection of people, but we're not going to go down that route. What I want to use the expression to represent and to illustrate is actually the complete opposite, which is that the world is entirely what you perceive it to be, because your individual and your unique perceptions of the world are the keys to your power. The keys to your power and the keys to your sovereignty. Understanding that you are both not this limited physical being, but that you are that eternal wave of light and energy that is within. Once you understand that, then you have the capacity to open up different possibilities in your life, in your world. You don't live from the same perspective of your conditioned being. You don't retain the boundaries of your conditioned being. You open the possibilities. Now that opens us up to, and we thank the guides, that opens us up to the possibilities of all sorts of things. Because when we even do dowsing, what we're doing is accessing the quantum field of infinite possibility, the quantum field that is permeating everything, and the quantum field that is in itself conscious. I'll say these things, they're not necessarily scientifically proven, doesn't matter. The point is that once you experiment and once you try and you experience the interaction with that quantum field of infinite possibility, which we as dowsers can bring to our awareness, to our humanistic awareness, through its presence as earth energy. That's what we call it, earth energy. Digsy, you would have, if you're still online, excuse me, you would have had experiences of earth energy lines being a bit detrimental. Hopefully now they're all sorted. And sometimes the way that we come to this path that we're talking about now, this path from dowsing, this sort of physical based exploration of our spiritual side, sometimes we come to it through the problems that the spiritual side actually is giving us. We're out of resonance. We're not being who we truly are. We have yet to find who we truly are in those early days. And therefore, the interruption in our life, the illness sometimes, is there as a message. It's there as a wake-up call. It's there to get us moving forward towards where we want to be, where we truly said we would be before we incarnated. Hope I'm not losing you. Let me just have quickly catch up on the old doodads. JF asked the question straight away there with keeping a clean and tidy room or house helpful while dowsing. Clean house, clean mind, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good point. But, you know, if people came to our house, they would see that the house itself is in a state of being done up. So we have rooms that are still just bare plaster. We have bare wood. Stairs haven't been finished, they haven't been painted, decorated. So what I would say is that the space that you want to be special, 100% clean, tidy as possible. I mean, there's dust on these shelves. Where's the shelves? There they are. There's dust on those shelves. But I try to keep it as well maintained as I can. It does help. And I mean, even from a feng shui point of view, obviously it helps. It's the energy of the space that you're sitting in. Now, we talk about energy of space, and of course, we're a channel that works with we're a channel that works remotely with house healing and energy of place and space and how it affects people that live in it. And I've got a terrific guest coming up that I'm just trying to arrange the interview with, and he's a guy called Garrett Yount. Garrett Yoint from the IONS, from Institute of Noetic Science. So he's going to come on and talk about his research, his scientific research into how is it that we feel these things? What does it mean when we feel these things? What do haunted houses actually say about us and the world that we live in, for example? So that's going to be an interesting one. Hello, Ed. Good to see you. So Dixie, yeah, good man. Yeah. So yeah, keeping the tidiness and keeping the place in a state of harmony is the best thing that we can do. But of course, practically speaking, as a human being, it's not always possible. Certainly energetically, you want to clear it. I clear this house. This office gets cleared like nearly every day. I work in it a lot. So I clear it a lot. Just asking the beings, the higher beings, to clear it. There doesn't need to be a specific process, but you can feel it change and shift. So if you're working with subtle energy and you're allowing that spiritual aspect of self to come to the fore, that's a very elaborate way of saying if you're doing it, then you want to keep the space as clear as possible so that your connection is as clear as possible. And really what we're aiming for all the time from the spiritual side of the human being is to keep that connection as clear and clean and superbly smooth as possible. And what we learn when we step on this path of dowsing and we embark on this role of exploring the world and finding out just what is it like? What does it seem? If it's not what it seems, what does it seem like to us? What we really find is that our intention is 100% the most important aspect of it. And we live in this I'm actually going to use the word duality, right? But I'm not using it in the sense that some of you will be familiar with, where we talk about non-duality, where we talk about the spiritual aspect of life being a non-dual environment. The duality that I feel that we really experience is actually the contrast. This is a dual contrast. Look, what I'm trying to say is that the physical self, the human being, is there in all its humanness, and the spiritual aspect of self is somewhere else, right? Is around. It's around and about. I'm not going to say it's here because it's around and about. It's ephemeral. It's loose. And so the duality is, of course, really in the fact that we maintain our physical awareness and our physical being. And this is rather like dowsing, isn't it? Where we've got a logical question to ask, and then we just kind of go with the flow. We allow the flow, the answer to be responded back to us. So we have this physical aspect, the things that we have to do as a human being, day to day, day to day, day to day. And some people say, well, you've got to suppress the ego. You've got to keep the ego out of the way. Now, of course, when you're doing the spiritual work, when you're doing this work and you're embroiled, when you're embedded, when you're in that space, you absolutely want to keep the ego out of the way. But it doesn't mean to say that you're not going to return to a certain extent and have a good time as a human being. In fact, all of that spiritual stuff is adding to your enjoyment and adding to your well-being as a human being, because, of course, what you're doing is embodying the whole point. It's the whole purpose of your life is enveloped in the spirituality, and the spiritual perspective doesn't mean to say you have to be wandering around and holier than holy and all of that stuff, but your path, your agreed path, and the things that you are going to encounter are here in this spiritual aspect. And you, as a human being on the path, learn to embody it so that there is actually no differentiation. When you wake up in the morning, you are connected instantly in your knowing to all of that side of you. And that's where reality really does start to shift, as you will have heard from all sorts of different YouTube people all over the place. Yes, yeah, indeed. Those are some long words there, Squirrel Sniper. Yes, but this is absolutely. See, this is one of the points, of course, is that certainly people like dear old David Icke would say that the structure of humanity, the humanistic presence on Earth, is built to exhibit and create stress within all of us. And let's face it, it certainly does appear that way. And that stress is exactly what stops you connecting into this spiritual self. Now, having said that, you see, I'm a classic case in point that I get very nervous about doing this sort of live and all this sort of thing, and because I'm such a hermit, I get nervous about even going down to the local town, just momentarily. But what I'm saying is, you see, there's levels of stress, aren't there, and different ways that stress infiltrates and affects us, and that's an individual's path to learn how does the individual deal with the fear, deal with the different scales of fear that they may have, in order to actually just wash it to one side. It is of no consequence. It has no bearing, no meaning. All of these ego-based detrimental energies that are infiltrating in from the wider environment in which we live as a human being have no consequence when we are connected into that light and the loving essence within. They have no consequence at all. And in fact, really, that wonderful ability to be able to just see everything from the spiritual perspective does allow a huge amount of calm to fall across the entire human being, believe it or not. So there we go. So what I'm trying to get at here, folks, just shout if you're bored. is that the path that we talk about on the channel is we go from dowsing, which is a very, a very uh, flexible way of actually starting to access this intuitive self. Okay, so and once we start to access that, what we inevitably find is that if we haven't had like a spiritual awakening that's nudged us into this state of being, then what we tend to find is that something really quite chaotic occurs fairly soon after we start doing the dowsing and start doing the work. And it will, of course, come to us in a very ordinary form because we're living life. And what we forget once we're on this path, what we forget, because some of the stuff can be so exciting and blissful and interesting and fascinating and amazing, when we do access all the states of consciousness or whatever it be in the spiritual world, what we also forget is that actually our day-to-day life also is reflecting an aspect of where we're going. The more we do this work, the more that has impact on our day-to-day life. Our day-to-day life stays the same-ish, but it will get upset. It will get turned over. It will change. And that's very common with the spiritual process. So when we get these upsets, these moments of chaos, these moments of being put under pressure, if you like, some people refer to them as the testing times. Then I think it's really, really useful to recognize them as exactly that. I wouldn't use the word test. I hate the fact, the idea that we are tested by spirit or by our guides or by the higher beings. Because test, if you're going to take a test, it's like being at school, isn't it? You're going to take a driving test. Oh, yeah, that's a bit important. I don't like the idea of being tested. It's not so much to being tested. It's about them giving the turkey in the oven a prod. Is it done yet? No. Is it? Well, how's it responding? What's it feel like? It's like prodding our life, and this is what happens. How's it going to respond? How do we respond? It's not done in a nasty way. It's done in a grandfatherly, encouraging sort of way. And what we have to realize is that the higher beings are there as aspects of creation, aspects of the collective life. They are there to teach us. Right? Okay, yeah, so that's obvious. Well, of course we know this, Tim. Yeah, but we forget, don't we? We forget. And the way they teach us is that things occur and things happen. And very often when we embark on the spiritual path, what happens is that actually the things that we find really annoying, really make us angry or really make us fearful, those are the things that get thrown in front of us, so that we can adjust the way we respond to them. We would go from reactive human being to hopefully responding. And what we're talking about here is a process of being more mindful about how we interact with our environment, with the people that we find winding us up, with the situations that we find winding us up. We want to be able to call on, as I've said before, as dear old Dr. Jude Currivan said when I interviewed her some time ago, she said, in the difficult times, just think about what would love do if love were a thing, an entity, a personality. What decisions would that make? What would love do in that circumstance? That's an interesting way to look at it, and it really does help, does work. Space Cadet Lottie, hey, no S on the end of my name, but don't worry about it, Letty. That's great. Lottie, sorry, I do beg your pardon. Observe, not absorb. Indeed, yes. So what we're talking about here, mindfulness, right? Mindfulness. So being mindful, you will develop your dowsing by being more mindful. The point of being mindful as you develop your dowsing is not so that you study the intricacies of, the rod really moved, more today than it did yesterday as you're learning. Those are great moments, but don't focus on the implements themselves. We know this, right? You focus on what you want to look for, on being open. So the mindfulness aspect of dowsing is very much about feeling. If you can feel the way that you're sort of opening literally, and we'll use these words, you're literally opening a channel for inspiration. And if you can perceive that in some way in your inner universe, whether it be visual or just feel it, but the feeling is quite important. So those of you that do yoga, you'll be really in tune with your body, and you'll be able to feel the minutest little movements that you have as your body actually stands by to receive input on a subconscious level that is more likely to come through to the conscious level. That all sounds a bit grand and pompous, doesn't it? But that is the way it works. So your intuition is always coming through on that subconscious level or unconscious level. I get confused between those two. It certainly is not a conscious level until it comes into our awareness. And being mindful, you're encouraging and developing and enhancing that aspect of yourself. But what we're talking about, when we talk about mindfulness, we're really talking about our individual subjective experience. Right. Now, this is what I love. This is what I love about all of this stuff. We can, you know me, because I can get carried away and I can talk in such esoteric terms, in terms of, oh, yes, we're all part of the oneness, and try to explain that in quantum physics and all the rest of it, and lose some of you. But keeping it really, really simple, again, this is what I do in the book, is talk about the subjective experience that we each live. Because this is so important. Mindfulness is so important, that the mindfulness really sinks in, so that we stop using what we might perceive as the objective viewpoint on reality, right? So if you're with, let's say you're with your family. Families are always difficult because some people have got some really disharmonious families. But let's say you're with a family. Let's say there's a family of 4. And you're one of them. So you've got 3 people sitting around a table and you're all eating a meal. Now, the objective fact is that you've got 4 people sitting around a table all eating. But each one of those 4 people has the entirely unique experience. Entirely unique. If you're eating, you're eating ice cream. Vanilla ice cream. Who doesn't like vanilla ice cream? Well, actually, this person doesn't like vanilla ice cream because they've just recently found out they've got a dairy allergy, right? So that person's experience of eating dairy ice cream is, oh, I've started to itch again. Why is that? Well, these 3 people haven't had that experience. Equally, if this person has just split up with their boyfriend or their girlfriend or whatever, and they're deeply pissed off about it, their subjective reality of sitting around that table eating vanilla ice cream, no matter how nice the vanilla ice cream is actually completely overshadowed by the fact that they're really pissed off with that person they've just split up with. None of these people are pissed off with that person they've just split up with because they don't even know they've split up with them. The reality is utterly unique. You have one with an allergy, one with an allergy, one that's split up, right? One that's fed up. And maybe these 2 are really happy together. Maybe they're husband and wife or whatever the situation you want to be in. But so these 2 are sharing more intimate glances or whatever it be, but still the experience of receiving the other's intimate glances is entirely subjective. So there's a whole bunch of energy that is entirely always, let's say we live to be 80. Let's say we live to be 100. Why not? Let's be a human being for 100 years old. If we're 100 years old, there's a whole mass of energy that has been processed uniquely, utterly uniquely. Not even in the same the point of processing has not even been in the same place in the 3-dimensional universe ever. Never in the same place twice, because the Earth goes through this bizarre path, and the whole universe goes through a bizarre path through the wider galaxy, cosmos, whatever the word is. So, so the uniqueness of this is what we would call your life. If you've got to 100 and you've had this experience and you look back on your life at that point, don't get depressed. Doesn't matter. You could be 20 now and looking back on your life and it's still saying, okay, you've had that experience, but your life exists. Yeah, sure. Now it's coming from memory. And of course, we do go along with the old Eckhart Tolle. There is only the moment of now, but the moment of now is the point of processing, the point that you use to be mindful in, for the point, the purpose of processing the information that you are directly receiving and is directly going into your life. Good job I cut my nails the other day. Right? So where I'm taking you, where I want you to kind of head with this thinking from the basics of dowsing forward into this sort of nebulous spiritual experience that is utterly, utterly unique, and don't forget, enforces the fact that your life is so utterly unique. There is no other person in the entire 8 billion souls on the planet that has the same outlook on life as you. There is nobody that has exactly the same life as you, because your experiences are unique. Where we're going with this is that I've actually forgotten where we're going with this, quite frankly. You could spot that. But the process of learning to come to terms with this is about identifying your uniqueness. And do you know what? It's really about embracing that uniqueness. There is so much that we can pile on top of ourselves in terms of negative self-talk. It's really easy to be so down on ourselves so often. That is itself another form of stress that gets in the way of connecting into the spiritual side of self, the spiritual side of life. Right? So again, don't beat yourself up when you get down on yourself. Just be aware that that there will be forces, there will be energies that are designed to designed to oppress and to restrict your ability to connect into this spiritual side of self. Okay, so life is built on the friction between the fundamental level of fear and love, good and bad. That's the duality that is commonly referred to in the physical realm. And these energies, we can say ego, spirit, soul, self, these energies produce that conflict, produce that friction. And that is there for a reason. It's there as part of this dynamic of the realm that we live in. But what happens is that when we get low, when our energies are low and we are self-effacing and self-destructive to the extent that we actually partake in self-sabotage, then what's happening is that our energies are out of balance, and we have allowed those detrimental forces, for want of a better word, to actually overshadow our greatness, because we are all each individually great. We're actually I nearly swore, we are actually a miracle. I mean, we are. It is miraculous and it is amazing. And life itself is the purpose of being. Okay, and this is where we're going. This is where you go with this spiritual path. And we'll come back a step in a second. But where you end up is this, or where you want to end up, as far as I'm concerned, where you want to end up. And if you don't agree, then that's fine. Let's get to that stage and then move on to something else. But where I think that this goal is to recognize the greatness in yourself, embodied. Not I'm not pointing to me. That's not an egotistical thing. I'm saying the person embodies their own true greatness. They actually have a love for themselves and a love for their own life. We were talking about this unique aspect, 100-year-old looking back at their life, a love for that. Because if we, maybe we're 50, maybe we're 60, it doesn't matter what we are, but if we can have a love for our experience of life in its uniqueness, and ideally we've got a spiritual aspect going in there, because that gives us a wholeness, gives us a holistic approach to this ability to love it, then what we're doing is we're actually nurturing ourselves. We're nurturing our own well-being. We're nurturing our own power. We're understanding and we're assimilating, and it gives us the ability. And inevitably, what happens is we also become of service because it's just a natural step on. It's a natural fall on. You can't avoid it, and that's a good thing. So that's where we end up. That's where we go. But there's a step here. There's a step before we get to that stage, because it's always, hey, up we go. No, we're not going there. Oh, yeah, we go. Oh, no, we go. These are kind of like spiritual highs, I guess, as we go along the path. But there's a step here before we kind of get to a realization, which is, I will say, because actually probably a year ago or so, I was kind of stuck in this space here. I think I might have mentioned it before. It's not a big deal. That as you develop your relationship to the higher beings, to, as I used to call them, the management, I now call them the higher beings, just because it's an easier, more generic, less potentially upsetting phrase. So the higher beings, well, as we develop that, and certainly in the house healing, which we'll talk about again in a second, in the house healing, you're asking the higher beings to do the work. So we're acting as a point of awareness, and the higher beings are working through us because that's what they do, and they affect the reality of somebody else. Okay, so we think, okay, but they could have done that without us. What was the point? Things change. Everything's is as it should be. Right, there's that one. Okay, that's a really trite spiritual saying, but it's not trite. Well, it kind of appears to be trite when you're stuck in this mire, because you think, well, what's the point? What value? This is ego speaking, of course. What value am I in my world if things would change anyway? Because the higher beings have the ability to change stuff. That being mired in that is rather missing the point. And the point is actually where you step on from that, which is this recognition that life is love and love is life. Those two things. You love your life. And what you're doing is nurturing life itself in all its aspects to be what you want it to be. Because by doing that, and that's not an ego statement, that's to be an expression of the highest possible vibration that you can experience as often as you want to be experiencing it. That's the point. You have the option at every moment to change the vibration that you experience. That's the point. That's the power. That's why the world is not what it seems, because it needn't stay as a world that you feel you are fighting, or is getting you down, or is overwhelming you to an extent that you feel, I've had enough. The world is a wave. Life, the experience, being a human actually is a wave of presence and a wave of experience. It's not a thing that doesn't change. It is constantly changeable by us, by our choices and our decisions as we go along this path. And the only way to experience that, to understand that, to allow that to assimilate into ourselves as a fully integrated human being, is to do it, is to experience it. Okay, it's no, I can sit here and talk till the cows come home. Sheep, actually, in our case. But unless you experience it, unless you take the decisions, no matter where you are on this path, and it's not a race, it's not a competition, everybody's at a different level all the time. Unless you take the decisions and you take the choices and you move forward, just one little gentle step, one little subtle step, but the significant step, then you start to experience it and the penny drops and you go, oh, hang on, this is what they mean. And then you do something else and it's like, oh, hello, this is interesting, right? Those are the steps that you take. And they can be small, they can be big. A spiritual awakening or a spiritual experience, an extraordinary experience, should we say, an extraordinary experience, can come in the form of a quite a dramatic incident in life, or they can kind of just creep up and be present with you, right? So they can be either, and that a lot of that experience, how you experience it, will depend on the pattern of your life up to that point, if you're one of these people that actually has a lot of drama in their life, in their day-to-day life, and even before you've come across spirituality, for example, then that propensity, I think is the right word, the inclination for high peaks and troughs of drama in your life is going to continue. So it may well be that your spiritual awakening will be quite dramatic. Yes, do you see what I mean? So the themes of what you've lived up to this point always remain. That is part of you. That is what makes you. That's what makes the little life that is yours to look after. Yeah, just looking at Space Cadet Lottie. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, do you know what? Funnily enough, the sheep. Yeah, well, it is fields full of them. I was sitting here the other day, just tuning in and to do some healing. This is in reference to that kind of spiral of negative self-talk. And I've got a timer. I keep a timer on my desk, one of these LED things, and I use it for meditation and that sort of stuff. But as you'll see, it hasn't got a back to it. Those batteries are pretty well stuck in there. They're springy jobbies, like they normally are. But I was sitting here, and for some reason, hello, Tommy. I'll come back to that in a sec. So I was sitting here, and for some reason, I'd obviously picked something up at some point, and I was going down this spiral of negativity, and I could feel it really quite. Oh, hello. But I hadn't really kind of cottoned on to the fact that I was going down this route. And do you know what? One of those batteries leapt out of the back of this, made me jump, but it didn't half take me out of that spiral. Made me very aware of where I was emotionally, energetically in that spiral. It was just one of those funny things. So, oh, you've retracted your message, Tommy. Okay. Well, put it on again. Don't feel, put it in. I will read it. I might be able to help, or we might be able to sort it out another way, or some of the others might be able to help. Pop it back on, Tommy, if you want. It's a very difficult thing if you are depressed. Human beings really do. This is not to be. Okay, I meant a Christian man who has known me as a friend for a long time doesn't call and value me equally. Right. Okay, I didn't actually read all of your previous message. So I think what you were getting at, Tommy, was you were feeling sad that a Christian man, so in other words, somebody that's got a religious outlook on life, who has known you as a friend for a long time, he doesn't call and value you as much as you value him. Well, it's a tricky one. This again, do you know what do you know what I would do? And you might not want me to say the stuff, but I'll say it anyway, as you've been kind enough to put it into the chat, Tommy. I think that while you're feeling hurt by that attitude, and we don't know the full picture here, although you're feeling hurt by that attitude, do you know what? I would still make contact with that person. And if you value them as a friend, literally talk to them about it. And if they say, oh, it's, if they say it's because you've done something, well, quite frankly, they're not a friend, are they? If it's because they've just have been so busy or they're not well, then okay, that's okay, because you'll understand. That's okay. Talk to them about it. So all I'm saying really, Tommy, is talk to them, communicate to them. But also, do you know what? As you do so, I don't know where you are on all this understanding, but as you approach that, try to do so with love in your heart, so with compassion in your heart. So we're not talking about physical love here. We're not talking about sexuality. We're talking about, the compassion that is outside of the physical aspect of being human. But open your heart to that person. Try to just put your own hurt to one side and see how that goes. But ask upstairs. Ask the higher beings. It doesn't matter if this person is Christian or not, because quite frankly, I mean, nothing against Christians. I was brought up in a C of E. Um, what we're talking about here, what we're talking about when we're talking about spirituality, is our own expression of being us. It's irrelevant, as far as I'm concerned, what denomination, what religion a person is a part of. It has no bearing. If they're following a particular religion and their framework for their spirituality is following that religion, let's say they're a druid. Druidry is a religion. Okay, sorry. Okay, no offense meant. It's a framework for a spiritual devotion. And obviously it's very nature orientated, so let's not call it a religion as such, but it's like a religion in that it is a framework. And some people really love that structure and the ceremonies, and Druidry is really interesting. And the way it connects into nature is fantastic. So, but what I'm saying is, not all people, whether they're Buddhist, Christian, simply spiritual, or whatever, actually follow practices that you would think align to what you think their practice should be. Should be. Be careful of judgment. We all need to. Excuse me. I'm sorry. We all need to be careful of judgment. Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't know. Just try, Tommy. Just try. See. Okay. No. Okay. Well, that's fine. That's fine. But this is the point. You see that what you're doing, Tommy, there in making that decision not to follow that Bible, and that's okay. You don't need. You're not going to feel guilty about it, but you're not. What you're doing is you're finding your own self. You're finding the values, if you like. People talk about values. I never really knew what values were, but I suppose honesty, love, compassion, help. You're going to help somebody that's in need. Blah blah blah. All of these things that are important. You're finding your own values. You're finding your own steps. You're finding your own structure for who you are, and that's important because you're identifying your own self. And then that's really useful because you can't step out into the real spirituality and start to experience the real power of the spiritual aspect without really understanding, knowing, and grounding your humanistic self, which is the container for the experience life. Okay. Have you seen an increase in light ships, UFOs, or new phenomena in the skies above your property lately? So there you go, Tommy. There's a message there from Gina as well. I'll take a look at that. Lottie, so have I seen an increase in light ships, UFOs, or new phenomenon in the skies? Okay, so no, but that doesn't mean anything, right? It doesn't mean anything because this is bringing us through into more about how we relate our individual subjective reality into the collective reality, because that's a really good question, Lottie. There you go. Yes, Space Cadet. It's a really good question because it is likely to be increasing. What I've seen an increase of is military movement in the skies in the last few months, but we won't go on about that. We've got a military. We're near Catterick here in the Yorkshire Dales. It's a national park, but we're near a place called Catterick, which is the biggest military training centre in the UK, as far as I know. So we occasionally get flights going over, but more recently we've had big helicopters and stuff. So that's interesting in itself, but I'm not putting any weight into that. I'm not putting any energy into that. I think what will happen, probably within our lifetimes, folks, is that we will get official contact. We will get official contact with extraterrestrial beings. They may or may not be physical based. It's very possible that the current president of the United States is there because they're the sort of person that would push that through, and also the sort of person that others would laugh at. No, we're not getting into politics. I'm just saying, as a character type, somebody in power like that could have the weight to push through more information about contact than others might. So I think that we will. There's no doubt at all that they are present. But remember this. And there isn't really a but to this, but there is another but. But the point is that, okay, what I'm aware of, and where we are in our global history and our global position, individual lives massing into the collective consciousness. The collective consciousness decides what collectively we have as a background, right? So what I'm saying is that collectively, as a conscious entity, the human species is at a point where we now decide, oh, what's contact going to look like? This comes directly to Lottie's question. Directly, what is contact when it happens? What's it going to look like? Right now, you can see it on some of the more dramatic channels, should we say, those channels that go for the whoa, look what's happening, clickbait titles. There's Planet Nine has supposedly been found. I think that might have been a false one. I don't know, but I think it has been found officially. So in my reality, I accept that Planet Nine is there. Fine, great, marvelous. It has an orbit of something like 20,000 years. Okay, well that kind of goes along with Greg Braden's predictions. So Greg Braden's worth looking at. He's sensible. Now the thing is, let's use Planet Nine as an example. Planet Nine, for those of you that don't know, would be yeah, this is it. So this is it, Tommy. Yeah, there's the comet as well coming to Earth, and there's someone saying it's cloaked as a meteorite, but it's an alien craft. Yeah. So this is okay. Let's take this because this is exactly where we were going. And actually, I was going to, when I was originally thinking about what will I talk about in the live, I was originally going to talk about this aspect, which is actually that meteorite, right? That comet. Now, the reality. So individually we have choices and we experience that, and we all get the idea that we individually affect and we co-create our reality and we experience a unique perception of life, right? That's what we've been talking about today, and we all get that, and there's nothing new in that. Now when you put that together, think of that family we talked about earlier on not enjoying their vanilla ice cream. When we put that together collectively, we've got a few here, and then we got that, but we've got 8 billion realities, because they are unique. 8 billion. Over that, we have like an umbrella of consciousness that says this is what the 8 billion believe. Right now, so when we get something like Gina, that's great. When we get that that opportunity comes into our life, we see it, we look on YouTube and this okay, here's the comet. Oh, is that an alien craft? Do you want it to be an alien craft? That's the question I would ask. Personally, I don't want that to be an alien craft. I don't want it to be an alien craft in the way that it is currently being presented. I don't care if it is an alien craft. I would love it to be an alien craft. That'd be fantastic. And if it comes in peace and love, which, quite frankly, energies that are to be found in the cosmos, even if they were based on physicality, most would be of a higher dimensional thinking than we are. So most would be more inclined to be peaceful than us savages down here on Earth. So what I'm saying is, when you see something that's going, whoa, alert, we're going to be invaded. And I don't mean that facetiously. I'm being facetious, but I don't mean it that way. I mean it. Let's take it as an example. Let's take a different example. Let's take that thing that Unamu, I don't know even know what it was called. That interstellar object that came flying through our solar system a couple of years ago. If that were, and it could have been an alien craft, because nobody saw it properly. If that were an alien craft, that's fine. But what do you align to? Do you believe it's an alien craft? Because if you believe it's an alien craft, and let's say more than 50%, I can't remember, there is actually a number where this clicks into place. But if a certain percentage of the population believe that that alien craft was an alien craft, then it will be an alien craft, because the process of creation will make it an alien craft. Yes? This is the truth. This is the power. This is why healing works on a one-to-one, on a humanistic, spiritual level. Because if the belief is there and the higher beings are working through it, because our reality is governed by our freedom of choice, but also at the same time, we are a part of the higher beings and they are a part of us. So we have a massive potential for creativity in the life that we create. In other words, the experience that we create. I don't want to get too esoteric about this, but that's the fundamental truth. And again, that's why it comes back round to the world is not what it seems. So if we want the world to make contact, then it's up to us to believe the way that the contact can be made and align it to our spiritual, creative, high vibration, not the ego-based physicality, low vibration of fear and rejection and self-sabotage, blah, 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 blah. So it's our responsibility really right now at this pivotal time to actually do the work as well as we can and to raise our vibration as high as we can so that actually our choices are the best possible ones. Because I tell you what, if you've got 8 billion souls on the planet, a percentage of those 8 billion souls will have a reality that they'll go off and experience. And another percentage of that 8 billion souls will have a reality that they go off and experience. And I know which one I want to go to. I want to go to this one, this high vibrational energy, not the low vibrational reality. High vibrational reality, low vibrational reality. And that's truly our choice collectively. Our individual life adds into the collective experience of life and makes choices for everybody. Simple as that. Frighteningly so. And actually, if you think about it, there's nothing woo about that because all of your decisions have an impact on everybody else. So you can take the spiritual aspect of that right away and just say, actually, your decisions are important as they are. Yeah, thanks. That's it. And I still can't even pronounce it as you've got it. Yeah, but it is 100% collective co-creation. So, yes. And actually, thank you, JF. Yeah, we are 5 minutes into 55 minutes into the live. Where did that time go? So look, we will pick this up again. I can't say when because life, the universe and everything is rather busy and chaotic at the moment. But guess what? I've got a book coming out at the end of the year. While I talk about books, look, let me just give you a book check. Darn. I'm coming back. Don't go. Hilarious. I was looking at it only yesterday and thought I'll put it there because it'll be easy to reach. There's a book by Bruce Lipton and Steve Bierman called JF. Can you remember what that's called? There's nothing like being prepared. It's a book, Steve Bierman, Bruce Lipton, Spontaneous Evolution. Okay, it's got some heavy stuff in it, but thanks, JF. It's got some quite heavy stuff in it, but it is readable. Bruce Lipton is always good at good read. But what they're saying is they're talking about this, the collectiveness, the collective creation aspect. And they're talking about the way that collectively the human species creates this basal paradigm of belief that we all buy into and we just accept it's there. It's the background. It is what life on Earth is like. Basal paradigm. Fantastic little book. It's not so little. So look, we are going to wrap it up, but we've got 1 minute, but it doesn't matter. I can go on a couple of minutes over as long as JF can hang around for a couple of minutes. So house healing. This is an integral part of this path. It really, truly is. I'm not just saying this because I've got a course coming up, but I have got a course coming up. If any of you do want to take part in the house healing and find out more about working with the subtle energies of creation in a way that is of service for people, the fundamentals are that you just need to have an awareness of dowsing and be confident, relatively confident. You need to be confident in your dowsing. What we learn about is accessing energies remotely. Anywhere in the world, we can work on a house. And you can learn to do that. And we do that over 10 months. It's a price of 175 GB pounds per month, which I accept is not affordable for everybody. And if you truly, truly, truly want to do the course, but you cannot afford that, let me know anyway, because I may be able to point you in the direction of another trainer who is extremely good and can take you through the process in a slightly different way, but it will be through the process, and he is excellent. So, and he can do it for a lower rate than I can do it, or we can come to some arrangement, but contact me. So, very kind. Yes, well, that Tommy, just seeing that one there. No, it doesn't. Well, there is no such place, quite frankly. Do pop over to that house healing workshop page that JF has kindly just popped up on there. Let me just pick up another comment there from Moo Conduit. I often wonder about elemental consciousness, especially those of the materials of which military vehicles are made. Yes, I think metals may have a lot to say, although it's not easy to decipher exactly what. It's an interesting one. That is an interesting one, and there is a whole conversation to be had as part of that development process about allowing things to express themselves in the way they want to. I think if you think about it, the way that metals are made and utilized and put into physical structures, metal doesn't really have a lot of say in what it is being formed into. But, you know, we can bless those things even so, and maybe they'll never be used in anger. Equally, there's a whole raft of discussion that actually says that even pain, suffering, all of that stuff is a part of the current basal paradigm of belief that we have here on Earth. It may change, but at the moment, that is being used by some souls to actually learn lessons that need to be learnt. That's just the way it is at the moment. Need it be like that forever? No, it needn't. Okay, so if you're interested in the house healer training, there's a contact there. I'll pop it onto the live a bit later on this afternoon for anybody that catches this on playback. Thank you very much for being wonderful today. Lovely to see you all. I have to say that JF enables me to do this. I can't really comfortably do these anymore without a moderator's help, and JF is the best moderator that I have. Don't tell him he's the only one I've got. No, he is great. So many thanks to JF, and don't forget, if you want to get a book to put together, talk to JF in the first case, see how that goes. The house healing thing, just to let you know, I can tell you more about it, but what I do is I do like to talk to everybody that's interested in it, because it is actually quite important that we make sure we're a good fit. It's starting in September. The first one is likely to be on the 24th of September. It's a small group. I have already got 4 people lined up, and the most I will take on is 6. And the reason that is only 6 at the most is because it's experiential, and we work as a group to discuss and digest and pull apart. There's not a single PowerPoint slide in any of those 10 months. It's not about me turning up and pontificating. And it's also not about, if you've got problem A, you fix it with this, B, this, B, that. Right? It's not that. What it's about is actually learning and trusting and developing your own individual connection to upstairs, to the higher beings, and realizing that you are a part of them and they are a part of you. And it always has been the case. Well done. Very good. I will try to do more lives, certainly as the book is printed and published end of year, mid-November, basically, it's going to be out. So, you know, you can see that the end of the year are going to be more available. We will do more of these. Always drop me a question. Just send me an email or leave a comment if you've got a question. Even if you're not a member, if you want to be a member, sign up, $4.99 a month. Brilliant. It's very, very useful space to share and express yourself, and to ask some of the more complicated questions about spirituality. I try to answer. I can only answer from my own experience. I am not a guru. I am whatever I am. What am I? So see what you can do. We'll come back in a few weeks' time, hopefully. Yeah, maybe September. Let's see. So thank you very much, and we'll see you. And I'm going to say goodbye. So lots of love, blessings to you all. Take care. Let's find the end button. Bye.